Hello, everybody. It's good to see you. I wanted to say welcome to our panelist session here, Building Excellence Online, How the MicroMasters programs are powered. And I just want to note that I'm really excited to have this panel today because I can't even tell you how much work goes into running these programs. And we have a few of the people behind us who are going to help us talk about that. So I'm Dana Doyle. I'm a senior director of the MITx program at MIT Open Learning. I've worked with MITx for more than a decade, and during that time, I've had the privilege of seeing just how much collaboration, creativity, and dedication it takes to bring these programs to life, and how we all work together so hard to make a difference in the world today. And so today's conversation is about the people behind the program, and that's a little bit of a misnomer. These are actually the people that you probably see all the time. And so when I say behind the program, I actually mean they're not the faculty member on the face, but these are the people that make these programs run. So really excited to talk to them today. Um, so we're going to explore what happens behind the scenes from managing intellectual property, which I can tell you, you probably don't even think of, but let me tell you, it is an enormous amount of work because we want to make sure that we have permission to use people's things like that. Designing rigorous assessments. So again, these are MIT quality, MIT hard courses. And so to translate what happens in a classroom to an online environment can be a little challenging, especially for the way that MIT works. And also just producing engaging content and ensuring a seamless learner experience for learners around the world. And I say seamless, not always seamless, but these are the people that fix it and try to make it as seamless as possible. So you can focus on your work and not so much on all the things that we're focused on. So we're going to talk honestly about the challenges, lessons learned, and how this work continues to evolve. We'll leave some time for questions submitted by people who RSVP'd at the end here. Okay, so let me introduce the panelists. Okay, so we've got Davis Henneford. He's the education manager at JPAL, who works on the MicroMasters in Data Economics and Design of Policy. Alyssa Levy, program manager for the MicroMasters program in finance at MIT Sloan. Jeremy Vrossen, senior program assistant for the MicroMasters in Statistics and Data Science at IDSS. Sorry, I have a puppy who's like ripping my sleeve off. One moment, please. He was sleeping all day. Okay. And Dr. Idma Barella, academic lead for the MicroMasters program in supply chain management. And if you hear growling in the background, he's fine. He's just trying to get my attention. Okay. Thank you all for being here. I'd like to begin our discussion by asking you a few questions to give our audience a sense of what's involved in producing these MicroMasters programs. So we're going to start with Davis. So Davis, we know the MicroMasters programs are known for both rigor and real world relevance. From your perspective, what does it take to design an academically rigorous program that still works at a global scale? And if you can talk a little bit about how assessments play into that balance, and which was also came up in our faculty panel that we had last week, a little bit about academic integrity, because I think that ties into the assessment. So if you can comment on that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Dana. Thanks so much for the introduction. I'm going to start talking a little bit about your first question, which is designing an academically rigorous program that still works at a global scale. So, uh, I don't have stats on all of the MicroMasters programs here at MIT, but for DDP at least, that's my program, Data Economics and Design of Policy. Over 68% of our learners come from LMICs. That's low and middle income countries. And when you want to engage with such a diversity of learners who each can have such unique backgrounds, you have to try to make the program as approachable as possible. Now, that's not an easy task always, especially considering how rigorous these courses are. As Dana may have said at the beginning, they're all equivalent to residential semester-long courses at MIT. So what do you have to keep in mind? Well, first, a lot of these folks who you'll be dealing with, the learners, haven't had the same rigorous academic background that a lot of the residential MIT students have had. They're also obviously going to do all of this online. So you have to be a lot more self-motivated. Now, the inbuilt flexibility of online programs can be a benefit for these non-traditional learners, but for a lot of learners, you really have to work on catching them up. So I think Inma later is going to talk some about engagement strategies. So I won't talk about that as much. I'll let her talk more about the nitty-gritty of assignment placement and strategies like that. But so what I'd like to talk about a little bit is scaffolding. I think that that is the most straightforward solution to catching up learners. And to that end, over the past several years, we've been creating new resources on calculus, probability, statistics, and coding, these foundational skills that learners need to succeed in our program. And right now, these extra materials are tucked in throughout the courses in places that we think learners might need them most. But we're also currently considering a sort of math camp that would broadly provide these background materials in every course and just kind of lay the groundwork. But there are also other ways to provide scaffolding. As another example, I've started to develop practice timed exams so that learners who haven't dealt with the time pressure of taking academic exams can get a flavor of that before the actual proctored exams that we offer. And another example, in the past, for one of our courses, microeconomics, which is one of the most popular ones, we did live recitations where we presented over Zoom some tips and tricks, solved challenging problems, did a Q&A session, and then we recorded these recitations, added them to the course, and we've seen huge engagement with these sessions, even years after they were first filmed. So yeah, scaffolding. I think in some ways it's maybe a low-hanging fruit, but that's not to say it's not really important. But there are things you can do outside of scaffolding. Engaging with a diverse global audience is a lot about getting creative. We want to connect learners and bridge gaps in interesting ways as well. And to that end, we've been collaborating closely with our university partners across the globe as well. We continue to hold webinars and study groups with these partners and institutions. For a while, I mean, we've tried all sorts of things. We had study groups where we implemented weekly rankings for those within the cohorts to try to promote some sort of friendly competition. This wasn't the most successful thing, but we've been constantly trying. We've partnered with philanthropic organizations based in places like Brazil, Indonesia, and sub-Saharan Africa to specifically target and support learners within these regions specifically. And continuing on the partnership front, we started to offer in-person exam opportunities with our partner schools for those without stable internet connections. Um, I guess, I've talked about partners for a little bit now, and we've been very lucky with our ability to form and leverage partnerships. That's not a luxury that everyone will have. And I think a lot of this boils down to being flexible and meeting learners where they're at, wherever in the world that might be. As a final, I think easier to implement example, we've had a discussion forum on our online platforms forever. But this isn't really a natural place for conversation. It's not a place where after work you want to hang out and have a chat necessarily. So to that end, we've built, with the help of some of our passionate learners, a DEDP Discord server where the focus is less academic. Learners do discuss material, but it's more of a space for learners to post an interesting article or share a project they've been working on in a place that's more natural to them. That's the idea anyway. Dana, I haven't talked about assessments yet. So I will talk a little bit about that now. Um, in my opinion, I'm going to share some high level information because I think Inma's going to go a little lower. So I think there are two primary goals of assessments. The first is obviously to assess the learning of the individual. If an assessment isn't assessing, it's completely failed, right? But assessments ultimately should help the learner learn. This means that the assessment isn't engaging and interesting, it's also failed. And I like to think of course content at a very high level divided into two very large umbrella categories: tools and concepts. These categories, I don't think they're perfect or necessarily even mutually exclusive, but they are really helpful for me to explain what I mean and my theory about assessments. Tools-based courses revolve around teaching specific tools, I guess, actionable steps you can take to solve a specific problem or arrive at a very particular answer. So an example of this would be calculus, right? In calculus, you're given a specific set of tools, and learners are challenged to take these tools, combine them in ways, and solve the problems you presented them. This kind of course translates really well into online learning for a number of reasons. And one of the huge ones is that assessments are really easy, right? You ask a question, learners fill in the blank with a specific answer you're looking for, and you're done. Um, Now, on the other hand, concept-based courses are, more conceptual, as the name might suggest. They focus on understanding broader theories, higher level information. An example of an almost purely concept-based course might be something like creative writing, which is not something we offer, but as you might imagine, might be harder to do over online. Typically, the way concept-based courses would be tested in a residential setting would be through essays, or at the very least, short answer questions. Now, you got to think about the constraints of online learning, right? We don't have the luxury when we have tens of thousands of learners to, sit down and grade essays or even short answer questions, right? So we have to rely on multiple choice questions primarily. But at the same time, we need rigorous assessments that are both challenging and fair. You could make a very hard exam by making every question something like, what was the middle name of the author of the paper of the effect of Spanish colonialism in South America? And that would be a very hard exam if every question was like that, but it wouldn't be fair. And it doesn't assess the learner's understanding in a real way. It promotes the worst kind of learning. We've had the internet forever, and now we have AI. Regurgitating names and dates isn't useful. And Dana asked me to talk a little bit about academic integrity, and that's kind of the frontier of cheating right now is, using AI. So I think of designing interesting, complex questions as a way of kind of knocking out two birds with one stone. They're harder for AI to kind of tackle as well, and they're more human. So here's an example. We have an introductory elective, Good Economics for Hard Times. It's based on the book by the same name, rather, by Esther Duflo and Abhijit Banerjee. It's a very approachable course. There's almost no math in it. And in our exams for this course, we try to put the learner in a position of a legislator or a member of the executive branch of a country. And instead of asking a series of 50 unrelated multiple choice questions, we execute this sort of role play within the exam with far fewer long select all that apply questions. Each question might have a dozen or so options, each of which could be correct. Each might be detailing an economic policy and a potential ramification of that policy. The result is that learners have to engage with a suite of situations in a way that's rigorous and fair. And I think kind of taking a step back and thinking about test questions in this way is really helpful for all of the reasons that I've mentioned. Academic integrity is absolutely critical, and it's an arms race. So I think if you can engage with academic integrity in a way that's not just more intrusive to the learner or more frustrating for the learner, but also helps them, it feels like a win-win. So that's more or less what I wanted to cover. I think that's about 10 minutes, so I don't want to take too much time here, Dana.
Thank you, Davis. That was
Yeah.
excellent. All right. So my next question is for Alyssa. So Alyssa, you've managed the MIT Sloan's Finance MicroMaster since its launch in 2020. Can you talk about what it takes to sustain a large scale program over time? And I think as part of that, because you guys changed the format of your MicroMasters after working in the instructor paced format. So maybe if you could mention a little bit about how, because that was a big decision, right? And took a whole bunch of work to do. So not a small commitment. So I'm curious how that came up and how you made that decision. I think that's a really good example of like program management and like, you know, biting off the big chunk and be like, okay, this is going to it's going to be a lot of work, but it's going to, really have an impact on the course. And also responding to learner feedback at scale. And so that may be some information that comes through the forums or through your email, because I know you connect with them individually as well, and even through our customer service if that is applicable. All right, so Alyssa, go ahead.
Great. So, in terms of sustaining a large scale program over time, we are coming up on the sixth anniversary of the MicroMasters program in finance. And so our thinking has changed a lot over the years. I think we started in a really tactical way, just trying to get this program launched and live in the middle of a pandemic when all of our work environments and workflows had changed, and under a fair amount of pressure to deliver a high quality program to the world. But we've really come over the years to think about the program as a complete learning ecosystem. And so we think about program sustainability holistically and along a couple of lines. The first, as Davis was mentioning, is really protecting academic integrity and rigor. And so this is critical since the value of the credential really depends on trust. And so we're always doing our best to ensure that, again, as Davis mentioned, that assessments remain challenging and fair, that academic integrity is protected, and that what learners are learning and mastering reflects real finance practice today. To your point, Dana, the second thing that it requires is listening to feedback and then iterating thoughtfully in the program based on that feedback. And so, with thousands of learners globally, we receive feedback at scale. And as you mentioned, through multiple channels in the discussion forum, through our fantastic customer support team, through individual emails on LinkedIn. I mean, we really have lots of different ways of connecting with the community, which is really, really rewarding. And the job isn't really so much about reacting to every single individual comment as it is looking for patterns in that feedback. And so one of the patterns that we noticed in the first few runs of each course was that because the content is so challenging and so rigorous and so dense, that people wanted to be able to work through it on their own time rather than on a very strict instructor-paced timeline with deliverables every single week. So we were seeing some people who really wanted to fly through the courses, who had the time and the aptitude to work through them very quickly. And then we were also hearing from learners who were saying, this is taking me quite a bit of time, but I am committed to mastering this material, but it would be helpful to have a little bit more time to really work through and master all of this content. So that was a great example of the type of learner feedback that we received that prompted a very substantial change in the program and moving it from those tight instructor-paced deadlines to an environment that was more self-paced and flexible. And so, yes, so we're constantly looking for these types of patterns at both a high level, as in that example, but we're also looking at individual courses at the level to see where are learners getting stuck, for example, where can clarity improve? And then we're taking that feedback and also the data that we're able to see and thinking about how we can refine the learner experience without necessarily without destabilizing what already works and is working well. Say the final thing that's required for sustaining these programs over time is a lot of behind the scenes coordination, as everybody here today knows. We have, for every single run of every single course, and these courses are open 24/7, 365 days a year, we have faculty, we have teaching assistants, program staff. On the open learning side, we have educational technologists, platform engineers, we have marketing to get the word out about the programs, fantastic learner support. We do a lot of data analytics. And so all of this work has to come together continuously to maintain this type of really robust learning ecosystem. So I'd say some of the bigger picture things that we've learned, or one of the most important things that we've learned, is that sustaining a program at this scale, it's really critical to earn the trust of every new cohort and every new learner that comes to the program with the commitment of working through it and mastering it. And so that work is always ongoing, and it's what keeps the program and the credential strong. And in terms of your third question about what does strategic management look like behind the scenes, I can say a little bit more about that. For these rigorous interactive programs, these MicroMasters programs, we've found that it's really a balance of thinking several years ahead while also executing to the best of our ability today and every single day. So we think a lot about alignment. And we do a lot of reflecting and asking questions regularly. Things like, is the curriculum still aligned with how finance is practiced today? Are we maintaining MIT level rigor and academic integrity? And also things like, is the credential retaining its signaling power for learners, for employers, for institutions? So that's alignment is a big piece of it. Another big piece of it, again, is this balance of innovation with stability. We're always looking to improve and modernize where appropriate, but we need to do that in a way that's very careful. Learners really, we find, depend on consistency, and they get their study habits down. Most of our learners who succeed in these programs are fantastic at understanding how they learn best and holding themselves to account to really manage their own learning experience. And so we like to provide them with that consistency, and then any change that we're thinking about implementing, we do in a very careful and reflective way, again, incorporating that feedback and then executing on it, yeah, with a great deal of care. And I'd say, the another major piece that we think about a lot is, and this is kind of the internal complement to the external feedback we receive, which is using data responsibly. We collect a lot of data through the platform on learning behaviors. And so we're always, at scale, again, these patterns emerge. And so you can see where learners are struggling. Like, for example, you can see where engagement drops or where questions are accumulating around specific pieces of content. And then, but you can also see where outcomes are strongest. So you get these signals in the data about what's working and what can be improved. And then I think a big piece of strategic management is taking those insights and turning them into the types of thoughtful refinements and improvements that are consistently strengthening the program. And so every decision we make in the program is really with that question in mind is, will this decision, this change, this approach, will this make the program stronger, not just this year, but 5 years from now? And it's that long-term lens that makes the work strategic.
Thanks. Thanks, Alyssa. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to Inma now. So Inma, you bring the faculty adjacent academic leadership perspective for one of MITx's most globally recognized MicroMasters program. And I'm wondering if you could talk about what it takes to translate MIT's research-driven approach into a scalable, high-impact online program. Thank you.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Dana. And first, I would like to say I resonate so much with everything shared by Davis and Alicia. I think they are like just depicting very well what the work behind the scenes, like all the efforts we're putting to have these programs up there and still like being successful and looking into the future. So I will focus more on I think our program has been running for 10 years. It's still going strong, many people engaging with our courses. So I'm going to talk more about kind of 4 key design principles that we consider every time we create a course or we update a course, and that I think are part of the success of our program. So at MIT, we have so much knowledge and very deep knowledge, right? Amazing research, very complex as well. But the world look at us for learning and for understanding better all the topics that we're covering in our courses and beyond. So how do we translate these into programs that are online for anyone, anywhere, and have high impact? We want people engaging and staying with us for learning. So these 4 key principles are, the first one is distill the science. So we have these broad, complex topics. In our case, it's supply chain management, right? And we can go very deep in everything, and very complex and very mathematical. But what we try to do is to break these big topics into short, clear segments, small pieces that are important, that are relevant, and then translate that in ways that are easy to understand for anyone, anywhere. So this scaffolding that Davis also was commenting earlier is essential in online education, because we want to be inclusive. We want everybody to be able to learn from us. So just breaking complex topics into pieces and teaching the right models, the right concepts, I think is very important. The second design principles is to make it real. So for people to find our courses valuable, we want them to relate to the content, to feel that it's practical, that they can actually use it and apply it. So we always try to include real examples, to bring the theories and the models to life with real applications, right? And I think Alice also mentioned that in finance. I think this is very important, so people don't get lost with all the math and the complexity, but say, oh, this can be applied in this way. This is valuable. I'm going to put the effort. The third design principle is to make it active, because when we watch videos, we think we already learned whatever we listened in the video, right? Or we watch. But then it's when we apply it to problems, when we really realize that maybe we didn't understand it fully, or what really the learning happens with the practice. At least that's what we believe. So we intersperse the videos with quick questions, with practice problems, challenging problems very often, also like in our grading assignments, in our exams, and also immediate feedback, because that's where learning happens. And the last design principle is design for scale and for change. Because of course, we've been around for 10 years now, but the world changes so fast. So we need to be able to update the content, to keep it fresh, to keep it relevant. And in order to do so, we cannot go and change a whole course or a whole program, right? So a modular design allows us to update content in this piece specific in the course and just, change it for something new and keep it relevant and keep it current. So those are the 4 things we always keep in mind, and we even keep in mind now when we think about changing content and updating. So distill the science, make it real, make it active, and design for scale and change.
Great, thank you. I have another question for you. So this is for Inma again. And so from your perspective, what shifts have been most significant in online education over the past decade, and how have those changes influenced the supply chain MicroMasters?
So I think there have been 2 big inflection points over the past decade for online education, and we really felt them in our MicroMasters. I think these inflection points have everyone noticed them in their lives as well. So it's not only in online education, but I think the impact in our field was very big. So the first one was COVID, and the second one was the rise of AI chatbots. And the AI chatbots were already mentioned by Davis before, right? Because of course, this is in everyone's mind. But let's start with COVID. So COVID in 2020, it was a big boom for online education. It didn't just increase the demand, but it really normalized online learning for a much broader audience. People who may have never considered taking an online course, who maybe just watch some YouTube videos, some Khan Academy video here and there, they just started seeing online courses as something that could be a serious pathway for a credential, for a certificate, a demonstrator for that they were upskilling, that they were really updating their knowledge, showing it off in their CVs, in LinkedIn. So we saw a huge rise in our courses. We saw an increase in enrollments, in verifications, higher engagement, and that really pushed the boundaries, that pushed us to think even more about structure, pacing, and learner support at scale. Because of course, the more people you have, also the more feedback you get, right, Alisa? The higher the bar. So for us, that was a big inflection point, COVID. And the second inflection point was the rise of the AI chatbots starting in late 2022. The biggest shift was those learners after these AI chatbots became available. They now expect instant personalized help anywhere, anytime they get stuck, because of course it's like a personal assistant, right? It's there with you at any moment throughout the course. So we've seen less reliance on our in-course discussion forums that were the go-to place for people with questions about content. Now we've seen like that the activity in the forums have decreased a lot. And in this new era, it's not only the discussion forums, right? It's only we have like chatbots that can help you learn about any topic. You have online videos in YouTube and other platforms, and even Instagram, there you can just learn like in these short videos, many different things. But the role of our programs is still like very important, because programs like our MicroMasters that are rigorous, that are based on research, that are taught by MIT faculty, I think we are providing a framework for thinking. It's not just content. It's not like this like bite of content here or there. We're providing people, like helping them develop a framework to understand a certain topic, a certain area, and we give them the tools that Davis was mentioned earlier to really be able to make an impact in that field. And a last reflection about the AI era in which we are now is how we design online courses for this new environment. And like my colleagues sort of like pointing to this earlier, right, with like the challenges for academic integrity and also the challenges for people engaging with our content, because they may say, I will just learn with this personal tutor. So I think we need to start thinking about how can we make learning even more active in our online offerings? How can we implement better feedback loops? Maybe even working with AI-powered tools to provide this more personalized feedback quicker, better. How we provide guidance on how to use AI effectively for learning and responsibly, right? And finally, I think we need to think of course, maintaining our rigor and ensuring academic integrity, but how do we design the right incentives that reward the behavior we want to see? So we want to reward engagement and mastery. How do we put the right incentives in place so that happens, rather than just having learners just wanting to get to the end as fast as possible? So we are in an amazing new era with many challenges, and yeah, I'm excited to just to work on all this with a new approach.
Excellent. That's a good thing. I'm glad to hear that because there's still more work to do. All right. Next question is for Jeremy. So thinking about storytelling and engagement that Inma had just mentioned, if you could talk a little bit about like your approach or how you think about that in an online learning environment. And then also like and this is like a very short question, but like the answer could take like an hour. What goes into making the experience feel seamless for learners? Like that in itself is like an entire hour of conversation. But Jeremy, maybe you can give us a little taste of an answer for that.
Sure,
Thanks.
sure. First, I just wanted to say thanks to Davis and Alyssa and Inma for, I mean, I don't think we get to talk enough about these kind of things with each other. So it's really interesting even for me to to hear all their experiences and things. And I think they've gone over a lot of the things that I had planned to talk about. So I'll just fill in the little gaps here and there. I think for our program in statistics and data science, in regards to storytelling and engagement, our main focus is on engaged and connected learners, which we feel is an important part of the storytelling process. And I think that the learners fully engage in this because there's a consistent flow to how each concepts are covered in concise modules, and how learners are giving an opportunity to experience the applied side of things through being exposed to real world data sets. And the learners are also watching videos and doing exercises that we're constantly updating and adding. Like Inma touched on with the modules, we're able to to update those as needed and change things around. And I think unlike, I don't know, we put a lot of effort into the course forum, more so than Discords and things. I think maybe it's a numbers game for us. But in the course forum alone, I think in probability, we had over 7,000 posts in the course forum that were posted and answered, and that's a somewhat typical number there. So we try to center it on the platform, and I think we also other things we do for engagement is during the capstone exam, we have a kind of rigorous capstone exam where we have 4 proctored exams that are 2 hours in length, and that's separated over the course of a week. But we provide pretty much 24/7 live technical support through all the learners, and I think that kind of engagement has really made the difference, because unfortunately, as we all know, online proctoring is very problematic, and we're still working, to make that a better experience. But I think at this point, there's still quite a bit of work to be done. So I think that entails a lot of live learner tech support, which we do, which I think helps people be able to finish an exam and get a credential that they've been working hard on for years. So, and I think also I'm part of kind of building a bridge between SDS and the learners by connecting the learners in the forum to all community events like this one, or blog posts by our faculty, like our founder Devarat Shah's recent article on AI in education. And then we have live webinars in our entrance courses where MIT faculty and creators of the courses answer general philosophical questions from all learners in the course about content. And we also have some of our more newer and unique courses is our data analysis, statistical modeling, and computation applications. And this course is very much different than some of the other courses that we offer, in that there's, at the end of each model, the learners will complete analysis that involves both auto-graded and open-ended responses. And so the submission, the reports are basically commented on and graded by peers, and everyone's expected to comment on the peers' submissions. So this is, there's 5 modules, 5 different written reports, and then this is quite a bit of intense work. And I think it's a new process of peer grading that many learners aren't familiar with, and it creates a lot of questions and issues in the beginning of the course. But I think it's nice to see the process, and by the end, I think people are actually buy into it and enjoy this, writing the reports and providing peer grading and selecting valuable comments. So I think that's kind of unique. And sorry, rambling. Did you want me to go into the next part of the question?
Well, I think if you've got, let's see here. Yeah, so if you have any, we have a couple of questions from the audience, and then, so I think we have a few more minutes. So maybe if you have any examples of like a particular challenge, and it sounds like you addressed that a little bit with like, even in the last course you talked about of like using peer grading, which is not typical for your other courses, but anything where, maybe even if you were surprised by something and you're like, oh my God, I need to figure out how to fix the whatever, and maybe not in the traditional sense of like, here's a problem, let me fix it. But you're more familiar with the like, oh my God, it's on fire, what do I do? And so maybe if you have a good story about that, I think that would help kind of communicate in the trenches experience that you guys have all had managing these programs.
Sure. I mean, for the on fire experiences, I just try to remind the learners and myself to just breathe and take a couple deep breaths, because I think that it's hard to communicate when things are so heightened. So this breathing and I think really actually, as simple as that sound, really actually helps. But I think I don't know. I think it all goes back to that. I think that we have an amazing commitment from faculty and from Dr. Kareen Chu, who I work closely with, who develops the instructional materials. and the TAs that we have that are students and postdocs in IDSS. I think their commitment is what makes these kind of issues workable. So I think things that might seem like a big issue when tackled by all these all these people in our department are able to be worked out. And obviously there's much bigger issues that everyone addressed earlier about AI that will continue to be issues for a while, but I think they're good issues to have because it's constant change, and that's part of it as well too. So yeah, so I just wanted to thank everybody, and I think that's
All right.
what I have for the moment. But yeah.
All right, thanks, Jeremy. All right, so I've got 2 questions from the audience that came in earlier from people who RSVP'd. All right, so the first one is from Liz. And this, anyone can chime in. If nobody chimes in, I will call on somebody. So just like your traditional classroom, right? Somebody has to answer. Okay, so how has your mindset changed from when you began working on this program? And I think that could be anything from your expectations of the programs, your expectations of yourself, how the program rolled out, but anything that you just kind of like now when you think back, you're like, oh wow, I actually did like a 180 on my thinking about that, or even just like, wow, I hadn't really thought of that, and this was a big impact that really changed how I think about the whole program. So anybody, you may jump in.
I can start, and I'm sure my colleagues will jump in after.
Excellent.
I was a professor. I was teaching at a university here in Spain before I started my postdoc at MIT. When I went to MIT 2017, started working in the MicroMasters program, and I came with my mindset of this is like teaching in person but online. So then I think I don't know, it was, I think I created a problem, or it was a video explanation of the problem and all. And they, the feedback, they catch every tiny little mistake, even if it was just, like a little typo, a small thing. They they killed me, right? It was amazing, like how now I did not realize that I did not have just 90 students in front of me live in a classroom. I had like thousands of students watching my video and solving my problem, and then like watching it again, going back, analyzing every second. And I realized like the level of perfection of anything I put in the program had to be like close to 100%, right? And even if I thought it was 100%, they were going to find something. So the importance of the feedback, being very open to feedback, always asking for it, and then iterating on anything you put in the courses. I think that was my first learning, and something I carried with me throughout all these years. And I think it made me a better professional and even more perfectionist.
Alyssa.
I can build on that a little bit. And Inma, we of course experienced the exact same thing in not just the first run of each of our courses, but also the second and sometimes even the third. It's just it's extraordinary the attention to detail that people bring to these programs, and it's been such an experience of learning how critical it is to get things right and at scale, confusion scales, right? Like education scales when you get it done and done perfectly, but confusion scales when you miss the tiniest little thing. And so it was, we had a very similar experience. And related to that, I think one of the biggest mindset shifts that my team experienced was around the audience for this type of material, because the MIT Master of Finance program has a pretty specific demographic that's attracted to the program, being primarily pre-experienced professionals, so people who have just finished their undergrad and go either straight into a graduate program or into a graduate program with perhaps 1 to 3 years of experience. And so when we designed the program and launched it, we thought that the MicroMasters program would attract a similar audience to the residential program. Um, and we were completely wrong. Like it just, I mean, we learned very quickly that the audience is so broad and that anybody with, it's not somebody with a specific set of academic accomplishments or experiences that can thrive in programs like this. It is really anybody with the interest, number one, and then the aptitude and the dedication to get through these programs. And so it has been extremely inspiring to watch the audience for this type of MIT hard content just broaden in the way that it has.
Thanks, Alyssa. Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite things. I mentioned this in the last panel, like the MicroMasters celebration, that we do during the summer, like so inspiring and just so incredible, and all the different types of people from all, and just like the long list of people who like delivered. It's so impressive, and just and to your point, like all some people are like they've got a schedule, they work on it, they do they do it in a year, and then you've got people who are doing who knows what, it takes them 3 years. I mean, it's just such a rich tapestry of people. It's fantastic. Jeremy or Davis?
I'll just, I think what you've said so far, Inma and Alyssa, is so wonderful. It's so true. And honestly, I want to kind of refer back to the last thing Jeremy was talking about, which is, when things go wrong, being able to take a breath. And I think that relates to what you both were saying, because, when you have one or even a dozen eyes on something, you're not going to catch everything. And like Inman was saying, you think it's 100%, it's not. And 10,000 eyes, that's what's going to catch that last 1%. So being able to say, to yourself and your learners, hey, yeah, that was something that we need to fix, and not taking it too hard, taking a breath, because something's always going to go wrong. That's one thing I've learned, but it doesn't mean that it's the end of the world at the same time. So I think it's been a lot of, for me, learning how to triage issues, and maybe you've become more of a perfectionist. I may have had to try to dial that back a little bit because, and I can see how it could swing in both directions. So yeah, I don't have too much to add, but that's kind of been my experience.
Great, thanks. Jeremy, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think just being open to the fact that things are never perfect, right? And they say, what's that? Leonard Cohen says, "There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in." So
Yes,
gonna
very
try to
good.
embrace that.
Absolutely. That's a very, very good takeaway, I think, from this panel when we're done, is the taking a breath and, leaning into what you're going to lean into and just kind of, deliver along the way. All right, I've got one more question and we've got about 13 minutes, so that's plenty of time. Um, this is probably the key question that a lot of learners ask, and there are classes about this online. I've seen them because I think I've taken one of them. In your opinion, what do you think are the best ways to organize a good study routine without sacrificing social and personal time? So I would love to hear that. So if anybody has any answers for that, Alyssa, I see like maybe you have an answer.
Well, the last part is really the clincher there, right? Is without sacrificing social and personal time. Um, I think that that's a great trick. And if anybody really masters that, like, please share it and we'll do our best to amplify that for everybody who comes to these courses from all across the world in numbers of tens of thousands. Um, in ter
Absolutely.
but I do think that as we have learned from our learners, that this type of mastery and efficiency is definitely possible. And some of the things we've seen, and that some of the research into these MOOC format courses show in terms of effective learning is for learners to first really understand their own individual styles of learning and what type of learning works best for them, and then to use their understanding of how they learn to engage with all of the material, to work through it and master it. And then perhaps some of the obvious things, and these are things that we recommend in the introductory content to all of our courses along, like how do you actually get through this really dense, rigorous content? And a lot of it is about discipline and just setting aside, being very intentional about setting aside a time each day or each week to do the work and to engage with the material. To ask questions openly is another huge thing. Make sure that you are getting answers to your questions. And then practice, 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 seek out more resources, more input from other people who are working on similar problems, your fellow learners, but just practice as much as you can. And I think that learners who do really, I guess it's those four things. So understand how you learn best and then work within that framework. Set yourself a schedule, ask questions, and practice. Those are attributes we see and behaviors that we see from learners who succeed in these difficult programs.
Great, thank you. Let's see, Davis.
Yeah, I think Alyssa is so right. There's that huge aspect of discipline, and there's so many people who've done so much research, have so much to say about this. I'm not the person to talk about that specifically. So maybe taking a step back and saying, I think the two pieces of advice I would give is before you even start, set realistic goals. This is something that I've run into a number of times with learners. We do webinars for new learners every term, a couple times a year, and learners are asking how many courses should I take? So many learners want to take 5 courses at a time or something like that. And some people can do that, but that is not a great idea for most people. So step one, I think, is to be realistic with yourself. You can set lofty goals, and that's great. But if you do that, also be kind to yourself. If you do set really aggressive targets, you have to understand they're aggressive, and then if you don't meet them, don't throw it all away. Say, okay, maybe I overshot, and maybe there's a smaller step I can take. I think those are the two, before you even, start trying to, divide your time and create tactics for maintaining discipline. I think just, before you even get into that, just some planning in your mindset can go a long way.
Great, thank you. Let's see, Jeremy, Inma, any comments?
Yeah, I can jump in. So this is a great question, and it's a question that every learner has. And it's actually a question we ask all of our community teaching assistants and our learners when they come to some events, because we want to know what's the secret, right? Why some people succeed and some people just cannot make it. So I don't think there's one size fits all, obviously, because everyone has different lives, different levels of busyness with work, with family. But people find creative ways of studying these courses, right? Since they are available anytime, anywhere, and our videos can also be downloadable for any of our courses. We heard that people find time to watch the videos in their commute. So usually it's time that was lost, or maybe they were reading the newspaper. Now they are watching the videos, and then they find time at night when kids are in bed in order to do the practice. And many people found how they used to wake up half an hour earlier. So every morning they have this set time, or during lunchtime, they just save that time in order to do the learning. So I think the important thing, there's creative ways of finding the time to dedicate to the courses. But as Davis was mentioning, I think it's important to have a clear goal in mind, commit with it, and then have a routine. Whatever is the best routine for you, just have it, put it in your calendar and commit to it. Because it's, what we say about our learners, that people that finish our MicroMasters, they do have grit. So that's something we can demonstrate, right? These people put so many hours on top of their social and personal life, maybe sacrificing some pieces of that in order to get to the end, that they really need a motivation, commit to it and then have a good study plan to get to that. Having a buddy also helps, or having someone that keeps you accountable. If it's someone studying with you, that's amazing because of course you're both on the same boat. But if not, people also like share the strategies about, having to report to their husband or to their wife what they have done that week, or to a colleague. So whatever works to keep you committed when times are hard and busy, that's I think that whatever strategy helps, that's important. Just apply it and put it in your calendar.
I guess just jumping in real quick, building off of what Inma said, I think you just have to think about not dividing things in such a strict context. Like social time could also be a group of people that you're friends with, or that you meet online, that you study with, or you study at a coffee shop with, and then you're also getting your social time in. So I think it's creative problem solving, and there's always going to be some imbalances, but you also have to remember to take care of yourself, because you're not going to be able to retain things if you're not sleeping and eating well. So I got to throw that in there. But yeah.
All right. Thank you. All right. So I think I have a wrap-up comment, and I'm going to thank Jeremy for this, because I think probably one of the most important things was the breathing, because you're absolutely right. Like, I think that the key thing is we're all human beings. You're a human being, we're a human being, and people make mistakes and we work together to get to our goals. And I think that just like taking that beat before you, berate yourself or berate somebody else, just be like, okay, you know what? Who knows what's going on with that person's day, or what's going on with my day? And maybe this is like, maybe I need to take a break. And I think that you're absolutely right. Setting realistic goals, knowing yourself, what you can do, what you want to do, how much are you willing to sacrifice? Because I appreciate the question, but I like Jeremy's answer, because it's not so much sacrificing, but maybe rethinking what those things mean to you. Because your personal time, maybe what you want to do with your personal time is learn, I mean, so it's really, I think, Jeremy, you made some really great basic points of like, understand yourself, take time, and really and be creative in like how you're thinking about it. So you're not stuck in like, oh my God, I can't go out and do whatever. It's like, well, no, you can, and you can go to a study group, and that can also be a lot of fun if you're thinking about it in that type of mindset. So those are some great answers. Thank you so much. All right, so look at that, we're right on time. Excellent. So I want to say thank you so much to Davis, Alyssa, Inma, and Jeremy for sharing your insight and for all the work you do to support learners and faculty across MIT. And I say that not just for everybody, but for myself personally, and from the OWLS team as well, because working with you guys is, how these programs run. So incredible work. I also want to recognize the many teams across open learning. And so we've got people across the board. We've got people in OGC. We've got people in our teams. We've got, everybody across the board has something to do with these programs at some level. And of course, we want to thank our global learners who make the work meaningful for us. And as I mentioned, if any of you, even if you have not completed the MicroMasters, but you can get the invite to the celebration, it is just an amazing experience. Not terribly long. We hear from a bunch of learners. We celebrate everybody, all the hard work that went into it. It's really a great event. Okay, so as we celebrate 10 years of MITx MicroMasters, we're also looking ahead. Programs like these rely on continued investment in people, technology, and innovation. If you're interested in helping expand access to high-quality online learning, I encourage you to support MITx and our programming. And so I want to say thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And please join us at our next event with the MicroMasters learners on March 5th. All right, thank you, everybody, for coming, and thank you, panelists, for participating.